Welcome to the Underestimated Club. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Alex.
We're two moms and founders who've been told you can't more times than we can count, and we did it anyway.
This is the space where motherhood meets ambition and where business dreams are built between meltdowns and deadlines.
Each week, we pull back the curtain on the messy, magical, and often misunderstood worlds we navigate as women who are constantly underestimated. By society, by systems, and sometimes even by ourselves.
No topic is off limits, from scaling a business with a baby on your hip to confronting bias in boardrooms. We're getting real about the wins, the wipeouts, and everything in between.
So if you've ever felt underestimated and used that as fuel, you're in the right club.
So let's get started. Today we're very excited to have Cara Kapler joining us on the Underestimated Club podcast. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be in this club.
I'm so excited to have you. And you and I have known each other for, 10 plus years?
10 years, yeah.
Yeah. So Cara and I met because she was my original eyelash artist before I started getting allergic to them. And then did my wedding makeup and is amazing and has kind of gone on to do other things since then, as have I. And so today we're excited to have you here to talk about the business breakup. So obviously everything's going to be more about emotional versus legalities and things like that, lessons learned. No one wants to get in trouble with anyone, as we all know. So why don't you tell us more about you, kind of like your background and what you're up to right now?
So my background has always pretty much been in the beauty space. I had a career in corporate. So I was always in a boardroom and always behind a computer. And I got involved in lash extensions and I loved it. And it was really just kind of like the perfect sister to being able to do makeup. And I just found that that's really where I kind of came to life. And I ended up doing really well in the eyelash industry. And so I got to a place in my career where I could either start my own product line or I could purchase someone else's product line. So that's something that I chose to do is I bought into a business. I bought 50% of an eyelash business. And we were in business together for about 7 years. And then that ended in June of last year.
Yes.
So now what I'm up to now is I have gone back to my roots in beauty. So I'm back to being a bridal makeup artist full time and taking lash clients again. And oh my God, it feels so good to be back.
That's amazing. I feel like you just have like a spark in your eye. Like I feel like you're like revitalized.
You know what? Thank you for noticing that, actually. I appreciate that. I truly feel like there was probably at least 5 years there where I didn't even feel like myself. And over the last 6 months, I've really come home to myself. And I think it's something that is really apparent to people that know me. And so it's things like that that remind you that it was a good decision. Like you really will feel it in your soul.
So
Yeah. And I think go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
what brought it back? Like what did you do to bring your spark back?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I had to do is I had to remove myself from an environment that was directly contributing to negatively impacting my mental health. And what was really hard for me to accept was it was a culture of a business that I owned 50% of. But you are not solely responsible for the culture that can develop within a company. And so when it is a culture of like micromanaging, perfectionism, highly critical, it really can start to eat at someone's mental health. And I was also going through a divorce at the same time. So when the business blew up, that felt like the worst case scenario in my entire existence. But then I realized that once I didn't have that constant negativity, that was where I started to notice that I was coming back to myself. I was able to actually get rest for the first time. I was able to just, I think, really get help that I needed and give myself the time and space that I needed.
I love that. And I think like you and I obviously relate on so many levels, divorce, business breakups. I know both are different in different ways, but what have you kind of learned about going through the business breakup when it comes to the emotional side of it?
Well, I think it's very easy for people to understand that a marital relationship ending in divorce is so emotional. Now, what I didn't expect was the business side of that is just like a marital divorce, but you're almost more tied to a business partner than you are even to the person you're married to. I mean, when with my business partner, we had a unanimous shareholders agreement that had like a death, divorce, dismemberment waiver. Like, I didn't have that with my ex-husband. Like, so there was a lot more fear and intimidation, I think, with the business breakup because, I mean, I'm still on good terms with my ex-husband. So even dealing with that stuff, we're still able to handle it with a lot of grace and a lot of compassion. Whereas with my business breakup, it was visceral. And that was what was so scary. You're dealing with like threatening emails or like intimidating emails and just the fear of everything that you've built falling apart. That was so much heavier than I had ever expected. And I think I had to realize that I had a lot more of my ego and self-worth wrapped up in a business than I think I realized. And so that took some time to separate and work through.
So what surprised you the most then about ending a business relationship?
I think the thing that surprised me was probably the way that things can change very quickly. So I was the type of person that I felt like I was earning loyalty or I was earning trust by going above and beyond. I will babysit your kid. I will house sit for you while you go on vacation for 10 days. And I was almost thinking that that was earning me trust in who I was as a person. And then when I would need space or time, I would ask for it and I wouldn't get it. And then that was where I think I realized that some people really can just be business and some people will always have a bit of their character and their emotion in what they bring. And so that was the most surprising to me, was that not everybody would handle things the way that I would have. And even though I might be a more calm, diplomatic person, if that's not the character of somebody that you're in business with, then that's just not going to be how the relationship ends, even if you're trying your hardest to keep it really soft. So I think that was the biggest shock for me, was I was trying so hard to keep everything in my control, and that not everything is in your control when you have somebody else involved.
Isn't that the worst when not everything's in your control?
I
I struggle with
know.
that.
I mean, I'm
Uh,
still trying.
I know, right? So, like, when you think about how this has kind of impacted your confidence to go from being, well, technically legally a co-founder of a company to now being locked out of your social media accounts, locked out of the business, how does that impact your confidence and what have you kind of learned about yourself in that process?
Well, I remember I've been really fortunate to have multiple mentors throughout my career. And so I had one of my former corporate mentors um, that was helping me at the start of this chaos. And I sat down with them and we're kind of going over a strategy. And he looked at me and he said, "Cara, this never should have happened." And I was like, "No, I know, right?" And he goes, "No, no, Cara, this never should have happened." And I realized in that moment what he was telling me. I never should have been in a position to lose my company through a hostile takeover with changing of passwords. And I didn't realize how vulnerable I was until, like, it was such an oversight. I have legal paperwork, I have all of that stuff. So I think that was a big moment of realizing that I had, even though I thought I had dotted my I's and crossed my T's, I had still put myself in a vulnerable situation.
So what was there early signs that like hindsight is, 2020 and you see things a little bit differently? Looking back, do you see early signs that you should have kind of noted as a red flag when choosing a partner or continuing to work with a partner?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking back, before I had even signed any contracts, there were red flags. We had a very different communication style. So I am the type of person that if you start yelling at me, my fight, flight, fawn response is to fawn. So I will just try to calm the situation down. What do you need to feel better? How can I give that to you? I just want that person to not be upset. Whereas other people, their fight or flight response is to fight. And that was where I think looking back, that dynamic wasn't healthy because it forced me into almost like a people pleasing role, or else there would be chaos. And as somebody that doesn't function well on chaos, I always kind of wanted to keep the peace. And that is what cost me parts of myself over the years. And that's what I think was leading to a lot of the depression and a lot of the anxiety. And for a long time, I was thinking that it was just, I wasn't cut out for business. But it was the communication style a lot of the time. It really affected my nervous system so much more than I thought. I wouldn't be able, like, I wouldn't have an appetite around this person. I wouldn't be able to eat. And it's because my nervous system is in fight or flight mode. And so realizing that I actually operated my best in a regulated nervous system. And I started to lose pieces of myself when the dynamic on how we communicated would change. And I mean, if you would go back and listen, we have podcast episodes about her talking about the start of our partnership, and some of our fights would be doozies. And like when we talk about that, we're talking about like screaming at someone to the point that like I would be sitting there just in utter shock. And so that was a red flag. And I took it as a badge of honor that I knew how to work with really volatile people like that really well. Because in business, you come across those personality types a lot. But I've now realized that that doesn't mean you need to partner with them in business.
That's like a mic drop right there. I can totally relate with that. I had a similar thing where it's like this person was quite volatile in a lot of conversations and relationships. And so I always felt like I was trying to like salvage things because this person was not doing their part and making things more difficult than they had to be. And I feel like what I've noticed now is that when someone enters a room, how I feel immediately is what I need to listen to. So I got to the point at the end of my partnership where it's like if I was even around this person, I would literally like start breaking out in a sweat. I would get really hot. I would feel really anxious. And I realized like, holy shit, this is my business. Why
Yes.
am I feeling this way with the person that's supposed to be my partner? Like it should feel the opposite.
Well, and that was the same with me. I would be my most productive on days when I wouldn't have to work with that person. And like my anxiety would be through the roof on days when we did. And like I would come home and I'm just like exhausted and you just crash. And that's where I realized, like, with you, like, I don't have safety within my own company. And like that feeling of safety has to start at the top. If I don't feel safe, then like staff that are going to join 10 years from now aren't going to feel safe.
So was there like public pressure? Did you feel like, Alex, maybe you know something about this, but did you feel like you had to make it work because you were supposed to and people knew you guys publicly as a partnership and that's what it was supposed to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, a lot of people were really shocked at who I had chosen to partner with, just because we're very different in terms of how we carry ourselves. I think, like, you know, my nickname is I've always been known as like a Care Bear since I was little, whereas like this person is more intense and aggressive. And so a lot of people were kind of shocked. And I think I felt like I needed to prove them wrong. Like I didn't make a mistake, I didn't miss red flags. So I'm going to make this work. And also, my entire future felt like it was riding on it. There was so much more pressure than with leaving a relationship that felt like one part of my life. Whereas with my company, I had sacrificed parts of myself. I had sacrificed parts of my relationships. I had invested so much money and time and pieces of myself that I never felt like I was going to get back. That holding on felt like it was the only choice until I literally felt like it was going to be the death of me. And then that was the point where I was like, actually, I feel like I need to almost like cut a ripcord at this point. And then once I did, the free fall felt more like freedom than it felt like death. And that's where I was like, oh, we can fly.
You're like Donkey and Shrek.
Totally.
I had to make a Shrek reference.
That is me.
It's so funny though, because I feel the same way. Like, so my divorce, like my marriage divorce, we're still friends. Like, we still text, we still talk. We obviously have kids, so like we have to do those things, but you don't always see that, right? I feel like my marriage ending has been so much easier than my business partnership ending. And because you do give up pretty much everything to your business in different ways. And sometimes you don't even realize what you've given up or what you've let slide or where you've compromised things until you really find someone that points it out to you. And so for me, like I was in this state of like depression, anxiety, nervous disaster. And then eventually I just had to like pull the plug. And maybe I guess in some ways I was your business partner in the sense I'm like, I'm ending this, but like I had more like the sit down conversation, like it's like breaking up with someone, like, it's not you, it's me, but it's actually you. And I think with men in general, like you can tell them something like that you're unhappy 30 million times, but when you finally put your foot down and say, I'm done, they're like, what? Why? I'm so shocked. I'm stunned. I'm like, how could you possibly be stunned? This has not been working. So I think that's definitely something I've learned too with like the public side of things is like building a business based on this partnership or this relationship and then switching kind of gears of how things are going to go can be challenging, especially when you have everything invested and the other person does too, and how you kind of amicably end things when things don't feel amicable at all. So, how have you dealt with you said you've invested money. You've obviously invested 7 years of your life. Like, where are you at now with this whole process that you can share with us in a way that obviously is high level?
Yeah, so we are still in settlement negotiations. So I am still currently a shareholder. But yeah, I don't have access to anything, but I'm really hopeful that my legal team will do a really great job. And I've just kind of had to genuinely put it in the back of my mind and just know that, like, whatever happens, happens. This is something that, again, I won't have as much control over. I will try my best. But it was a moment of realizing, though, that there was a currency being played that I didn't realize. And what that currency is in business and in life is your character. And so even though I don't feel like, going back, I would tell my 26-year-old self so many different things before she signs that contract. But I ultimately, like, who I am now, having learned and experienced all of those things, I just feel grateful for the experience. And that sounds ironic, but it was one of the first times I remember saying to my therapist, I get now when people say, like, yeah, that was brutal, but I wouldn't change it. And I don't know that I would have had the backbone that I've had to learn to have now if I wasn't pushed to my breaking point. So, and I also think the compassion that I will have for people grieving or going through that in my company, whichever business I'll go on to build, that will just bring a different dynamic. At the end of the day, my character was able to speak for itself. So things did go public. The company released a public statement on its social media page that has like 35,000 followers. There was a statement sent out to like our 10,000 email subscribers. And it was, I had always been the brand's voice. I had always been, truly, I think, the voice and the vibe and the feeling behind the company. And now that's very much changed. And over the last couple months, like, people have noticed the business has lost hundreds of followers on social media. And lots have come out to really let me know that they could see the dynamic, even though I thought I was so good at hiding it and I was really good at having my game face on. People had noticed. And, there was a flip side to that. I didn't realize that there were also opportunities that I was missing out on because of who I was associated with. So when the breakup became public, as mortifying as it was, it also kind of was able to give me a jump start at this new future of who I might have an opportunity of partnering with and working with or collaborating with. And so it's been the shit end of the stick, but I'm like, oh, but it's still a nice stick, like, we can still make nice things with this stick.
Well, that's funny. Okay, so if you're entering into a partnership now, what would be a non-negotiable for you?
Ooh, that's a really good one. My answer would be leadership psychology would be number one. So leadership psychology would be the big one. How somebody handles stress, conflict, and disagreement is definitely just as important, if not more important, than their talent or their vision. So I would pay a lot more close attention to patterns than I think I did in the past. So that includes like how somebody treats their staff, their former employees, their past relationships. That really tells you a lot about someone's character. And so I think it's a giant red flag if somebody comes with a long list of burnt bridges. That shows how they handle conflict. I don't come with a list of burnt bridges almost at all. So I think that that was a big kind of shining light at a very visceral difference in how we handle things, period, that I wasn't necessarily giving as much credit to at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think too, like, I relate to that so much because it's like you realize, like, in my business, a lot of the burnt bridges I had were not because of me, but because of that relationship. And so when it's someone that's always like, this person's crazy, this person's the problem, and like this continues to be a pattern in their life, it's like, perhaps you are the problem. Like, I've been called crazy, I've been called narcissistic, I've been called every name in the book, to my face and behind my back, I'm sure, about this whole dissolution. And it's just at the end of the day, you just have to know who you are and understand that, like, at the end of the day, if you have integrity and you're doing things like that feel right to you, that goes so much further than having to blame it on everyone else for all of your problems. Like I always use like drowning in a kiddie pool analogy, like people that like are always complaining that life is hard and that this sucks and they can't change things. And it's like, you're literally drowning in a kiddie pool. Like just stand up, like
Yeah.
stand up and help yourself. But there's people that
Flip
just like to
over,
be the
you're fine.
right. There's people that just love to be the victim. And those are not people that you want to partner with.
Well, and that was something too. I mean, when I was signing my partnership agreement, she was having one that was ending legally and not in a good way. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's not a red flag at all. Like it's totally fine. I'm different. And it's like, okay, well, no, you're not. And I remember, my lawyer at the time, all those years ago, he was like, Cara, this partnership agreement is not written to favor you at all. It's written to favor her. And I was like, yeah, but she's explained to me that like I have to earn her trust. I have to earn her loyalty. And he's like, no, you're buying it. Like you're literally buying 50% of it. What do you mean? And so even though I felt that I had to really do all of these things to really prove my worth. And in hindsight, you really do not have to do that. Like your worth is in what you already are bringing to the table. That's why they partner with you in the first place. That's why they want you to be their partner. There's something about you that they need. And in my experience, it's often the softness, the warmth, the likability of someone's personality. Because if they don't have that, it will impede them in business. So I've started to realize that qualities that I didn't think maybe had an actual financial value really were offering huge opportunities in business that I was getting underestimated for.
Quality use of the word underestimated.
Did that for you? Do you like that?
So how did you handle people taking sides? Was there obviously the public people in the public formed opinions? Did your friends form opinions? Did your family? How did that work for you in business?
Well, the thing is it wasn't a shock to my friends or family. A lot of them were very aware of what the dynamic was like, and a lot of them were they had vocalized concern for me multiple times and at different points. And then once I think time had passed and people could really start to see that spark come back, they were like, okay, we don't need to know what happened. Like she did the right thing. And I think, again, just being a good person, people will support you with whatever you decide, whether they understand the intricacies of the decision or not. you can almost see it on someone's face. Like it will radiate in their soul, whether or not they're in alignment or they're not. And so I've just been so overwhelmed with how much kindness and support I got. I had to release a statement following theirs, and it was just a quick video. And I remember just kind of like chucking my phone and like screaming into a pillow because I had never had to, like, I felt like I was standing naked in front of the whole school. Like it was just, hi, this is a really awkward and terrible thing that's happening to me. I'm sorry that this is needing to be brought to your attention, yada, yada. And then next time I checked my phone, like there were 50 comments, hundreds of likes, and multiple DMs from like other brands wanting me to reach out once my contracts and things were settled. And it was the first time I think I was able to exhale because I was holding this deep, dark secret that nobody else knew about. And I was having to show up as my bubbly self while I was fighting to get access to a business that I had helped build from the ground up. So I think it was a moment it was the first time I had used my voice and really felt like I could speak my truth. And I feel like my community kind of just reminded me that authenticity, I think, is really something that speaks volumes. And so I was really grateful that I had the support of more people than I even knew were following me. Like some people were like, yeah, you did my makeup 8 years ago. Just want you to know, like, I'm wishing you the best. And I was like, that's so nice.
Always nice when you have like those like silent supporters that come forward. I think I did that with you too when you were posting just on your private IG about it. And I was like, Cara, we have to talk because like we're going through the exact same thing, like in
And
both
like, I don't feel
segments of
like
life.
I would have known either, right? Like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
that's
it's
the thing.
funny because somebody sent me a DM and she said to me, oh my God, I had no idea that you were getting divorced. And I had no idea about your business breakup. And I responded back and I was like, oh yeah, how does one announce that on social media? And she was like, that's a good question. And I was like, yeah, it's a really awkward position to be in. Like, you don't want to look like you're airing out your dirty laundry because that's not what the purpose is. But we are also in a day and age where your social media and your personal branding are how you tell your story. And that is how you leave like your digital kind of footprint and journal of what your experience was.
Yeah. Did you have like overlapping groups like between the business? Like, so were you friends with people that you're not friends with anymore because of how things went down with your business relationship, or how has that kind of played out in your life?
You know, the irony was, um, my therapist tells me this was my survival instinct. I would be at her annual Christmas party or Halloween party, for example, and I really adored a lot of the people in that circle. But I was very aware standing there that I was like, once this blows up, none of these people will ever speak to me again. And I think learning how to almost categorize relationships I started separating my life. And so our friend circles were very different, which was helpful. Um, but obviously, our one and only staff member of 6 years is obviously going to side with the person that's cutting her paycheck, right? Like, so that's about the only one that I feel like I lost that is, it's a sad thing, but I also understand that not everybody, seasons, reasons, or lifetimes, right? Not everybody's there for all of them.
Yeah, I think that's such a good lesson. I think that, same for me. Like, you realize, like, you might like people socially, but you realize at the end of the day, it's like if something goes wrong, they're going to go to this person and that's okay. And your life has to be filled with people that are on your team, right? You can't have people that have like that wavering loyalty, especially when something like so awful has happened, right? Like, and I'm sure my ex business partner sees it the same way, right? Like, he doesn't want to be friends with people that want to be friends with me and vice versa. And that's okay. You realize too, as you separate from a life partner, but also a business partner, is that you're either growing together or you're growing apart. And have you found that, like, especially with the business, like that you've just kind of, you're kind of elevating yourself and some things are still staying the same in the other chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what was different though was I was really elevating myself. I was really choosing to get to know myself like emotionally and psychologically really deep. I wanted to get to know myself so that I knew how I tick at like a cellular level. And so things that I would learn would be like, I need to process emotion. I need time to be able to have perspective. And if you're collaborating with somebody that does not process and feel emotion, then they will not give that same space to you. So, for example, there would be a death in the family, and I will need to take a day so that I can be with my family. That's more important. My business partner will need to like open the laptop and work through it. That's how she'll compartmentalize. And so then that was the expectation that was almost put on me. And I just realized that that's not how I actually will function. And so I felt that I was maturing emotionally and mentally with like therapy and education and, mentorship programs at our university here that were helping me realize that the way she was operating really wasn't healthy. And so that's where I think there started to be a real divide.
So, in hindsight, do you think that this has made you more guarded, kind of looking forward, or are you kind of open to opportunities?
I don't think it's made me more guarded. I think it's just made me more aware of what can happen. You know, I think something I've learned about myself from a 7-year long business relationship and over a decade long marriage is I make a really great partner and I do love collaborative energy. And I think that I really am at my best when I work with other people. But I would be a lot more aware now of what's at stake and what really goes into running a company because you can try to not have an emotional connection and just have it be business. But, life happens. And so you don't always have the ability to just keep it business.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, I mean, like, I obviously have known you, and then I had a brief interaction with your business partner, and I was probably one of those people too that I was like, Kara's just so sweet. Like, she's just such a nice person, and it didn't make sense. So obviously there's things that people don't see behind the scenes, right? But I'm like their persona, right? Like it's like, Jekyll and Hyde or Bert and Ernie, I don't know, that's a horrible example, but you know what I mean? Like,
Totally. Yeah.
it didn't make sense, and I feel like I kind of have gone through that, and now I have Sarah, who's my business partner, and her and I are, cleaning up messes and, going all into it, and I was scared to enter a partnership again because, yeah, like, it's when things don't go the way that you want them to go or like how you ever expected in a million years that they would go, like you feel a bit, I don't know, you feel guarded. But I agree that like you don't learn those lessons with nothing happening. So, yeah, they suck. And yeah, the sleepless nights and the anxiety and the rereading every email and whatever is hard, but it also shapes you up for the next chapter to be a much better business owner, but also a better human, I think, too.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the amount of self-trust you can walk away with, like after you've grieved and healed, of course. Because I mean, it does hurt having to recover. I think it's just like any heartbreak. It will take you a little bit of time to heal. But something that I've kind of always prided myself on is that I won't let negative experiences make me jaded. I want to kind of keep that hopeful side to me because I think like that bit of whimsy, like that's what makes life really special. And that's what will open you up to really beautiful opportunities. And I also believe in karma. So I think like if you live long enough, you will get what you deserve. And like we've talked about, like your character, I think nowadays people are learning how to see authenticity differently. And I think it's a lot harder to pretend that you are a super nice, sweet, awesome, educated mentor if you're not. And so that's where I think that I'm realizing the power too of being a like social person and being kind. And if you have these conversations with people, like they will read your energy really easily. And that was something that people would always say is like one has a little bit more standoffish energy, one is a little bit more warm. And I never used to pick up on that stuff. And then in therapy, once I was able to regulate my nervous system again, because everything before was just anxiety. I was like, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? How does my body feel? It always feels anxious. And then she was like, okay, no, I want you to start like listening to your gut. When you work with this person, do you feel better or do you feel worse? And I was like, I feel like I want to throw up. She was like, okay, that's a data point for us. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, data point. Okay, yeah. And then all of a sudden this situation helped me to even learn myself better and to just learn human behavior better. And so as much as I would not wish this on like my worst enemy, I know that I wouldn't have learned any of these skill sets without it. And I think it was also a great example for me to show the type of person that I was in the thick of a hard moment, is where you actually get to show, push or shove, what your character is like. Are you somebody that will do a hostile takeover? Or are you somebody that really does put people over profit?
Oh, so many good things that I just want to I could talk about this forever. Sarah, what questions do you have?
I mean, I have a lot, but I guess what's next for you? What did rebuilding look like, and what are you gonna do next?
So I am back to doing makeup and lashes full time, which I love because you're always around really beautiful, bubbly, feminine energy. And I love that.
I want you to
And
come
then
to
throughout
Calgary and
this,
do a class. Sorry, interrupting.
what's that?
Well, you just did a makeup class at Edmonton,
I
and I want you to come to
did.
Calgary and do that.
I would love to. You should host me. I would come down.
I
Let's
will.
do it.
Okay.
And then
Sarah will come.
yes, please.
She needs lessons. No, she's beautiful without makeup, but she doesn't wear any makeup.
I know what
I'll
you
be like, let's
mean.
just put a little
Totally.
bronzer on, a little
Right?
highlighter.
Slap a little bit of blush on there. Totally.
Yeah.
And then my newest project that I'm launching, I'm actually launching my own podcast. It's called Thrifting Sparks. So I am such a thrift hunter in life. I love going thrifting. And that's where it kind of hit me that what I've gone through, there's a lot of valuable information there. And what if I can almost secondhand thrift that to my listeners to help them get their spark back? And so that will be one of my big projects that I'm launching. So my podcast, Thrifting Sparks.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you. So if
Thank
people want
you.
to find you, where can they find you? What's your social media? What's your website?
So you can find me by going to @Ms. Kapler on social media, MSKAPLER, or my website is, it's kind of confusing. It's Mrs. Kapler .com. Yeah, the whole branding of getting divorced and it being connected to your personal name. What a hassle,
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you can find me by Mrs. Kapler.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cara. We're so happy to have you here. And we'll be sure to link your episodes when you're ready to launch your podcast.
I'm so excited. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to use my voice and also for relating to me, because I know that this was such a traumatic experience and I never in a million years would have imagined another woman had gone through something so similar. So just really validated my own experience. So thank you too.